Hello, welcome to another episode of Rustacean Station. I'm your host, Alan Wyma, and today we have Wind. Wind is a core team member for Nushell. Hi, Wind. How are you?
Hi, Alan. I'm fine. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I was very happy you reached out to me because I've heard of Nushell, but I didn't quite understand what it was. I thought it was something like fish, but it seems it's something quite different, right? Before we get talking into Nushell, why don't we go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about who you are? Do you mind to kind of just give an introduction just about, who you are? Why do we care about Wind? Why is Wind an important character when it comes to Nushell?
Okay. My name is Wind. My nickname is Wind on GitHub, and I'm working in Python. Mainly working is as a backend engineer. My daily job is mainly writing in Python, and in my free time, I like to writing some readings and writing some Rust code because I heard Rust is a very good language. And in my free time, I'm trying to finding some tool to make my life easier. So and I discover something like bat or helix or and Nushell, yeah. And then I'm interested in Nushell and I'm using it for a long time. And then I'm become a core team member. For my name Wind because yeah I just love wind, yeah.
Your name is Wind because you love wind. Okay. Well, I know you're very close to where I'm from. We're very close to where I am right now. I'm not going to say where you are, but so I can understand how you must like wind because it can get very hot around over here. I don't know if you feel the same or not.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so in that case, I also love wind. Maybe I can also be wind because I'm a big fan of wind when I feel it. But I am in the concrete jungle, so I don't often get the wind. But kind of coming back to you, it's good to hear that you're a Python developer, but you like to play around with Rust on your free time. I mean, how did you first get into Rust to begin with? Because I think a lot of people in China area and we mostly use Python a lot, right? So I'm curious how Rust came, how you got into Rust to begin with.
Personally, I'm using Rust because I have read a blog from the author of Flask framework. Yeah, it's a famous Python framework, web framework. I remember his name is Amin Donahan, maybe something like that. Yeah, he writes some interesting blog about Rust. And something like how Rust give us a good memory model and how he rewrite something in Rust to give him memory improvement or performance improvement. So in after reading his blog post, I become interested in Rust. So I get to start to learn something around it.
What did you find to be interesting about Rust?
Rust is different to Python because it's in Python. Yeah, we know it's dynamic programming language and it has GIL and it's something like that. It's not really performance in Rust. It's compiled, so it's relatively to Python. It's performance and different to C. I know little about it. You don't need to manage memory in by hand. If you write something in C, it's easy to cause memory leak. And it's different to some languages like Java or C Sharp, which contains GC. So a language promise memory safe without using GC. It makes me feel exciting about it. And also, Rust type system is it's very good to me. Yeah, I like it very much.
And I think Rust in China is becoming more and more popular, right? I mean, because well, okay, well, it's cat's out of the bag. You're also in China, and it seems like there's a lot of people using Rust more and more in China. What about your current day job? Is it still only doing Python, or have you started to talk to them into using Rust in your work?
Actually, I don't think Rust job market it's very it's very good in China yet because in China there are still many programmers use something like C++, or some dynamic programming language like Python. In my during my day job, I still using Python a lot.
But now we can start to kind of go towards Nushell because you said something quite interesting. You said, I think I heard you say in your day job you're actually using Nushell. Is that what you said?
Yeah. That's why I actually said yes because in my day job I need to process something like process CSV file or some JSON file or making some HTTP interface to web API to to get the response from web server. With Nushell, I can process this data a lot easier. Yeah.
So how did Nushell, I mean, come up in your work? I mean, did somebody tell you about it? Did you run into it somewhere online, or how did you hear about it?
I'm using Nushell because firstly I'm using Python. Python has got a very popular data framework called Pandas. It's reading, so in Pandas we can read CSV file in table format in memory, so we can process the data frame very efficiently. So in Nushell I can do something like that without open Python terminal to process this data. So I'm using Nushell to improve my daily work performance. Yeah.
Your daily work performance. I mean, actually, before we talk too much about your working with Nushell, do you mind to kind of give an introduction about what is Nushell? How would you tell somebody about Nushell? How would you describe it?
Actually, new shell itself is it's basically shell. It's something like bash, dish, or fish shell. But new shell is more. It's the data model is more like PowerShell. It treats everything as structured data. So you can read data from read CSV data or JSON data into new shell table, and then you can process it through pipelines to filter data or change data or doing something anything else. And one special thing about Nushell is more like it's also a programming language, and it also also works on Windows system. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing to hear because a lot of these shells, I mean, they don't natively work on Windows system, right? You have to go through WSL or something else like that. So, I mean, are you using Windows in your daily work, or have you switched over to Linux?
Actually, I'm using Mac on my daily work.
Okay. Do you have some colleagues also using, or sorry, do you have some colleagues using Windows in their daily work?
Yeah, I have some colleagues using Windows. Yeah.
But are they also using New Shell like you?
Actually, the answer is no. They are using when they are using Windows, they mostly using Windows with WSL
Yeah.
to interact with Bash or G
Ah,
shell.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay. But yeah, the shell. I mean, it's. I have a couple of questions because I wasn't entirely sure. It does take the typical commands like ls, ps, these kinds of commands people are used to, but it presents the data in a different format, more easy to read, right? Is that
Yes.
because it uses a special version of these programs, or how does it work with the programs? Is it actually using the real ls and the real ps, or does it have its own version?
Actually, Nushell has its own version of LS or PS. It makes LS or PS as built-in commands. Actually, Nushell now have about 400 built-in commands to generate some table data. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. That's what I was thinking about. So, does that I mean, could that be a problem, right? I mean, can I actually continue to use Nushell with other programs, or do I have to write a plugin to make them work, or how does it work? Because if it's using their own version of LS and PS, does every single kind of function need its own version, or do I need to write some kind of wrapper or plugin? How does it work if I want to use something that's not in Nushell already?
Actually, in most cases, you don't need to implement such commands in. If Nushell has built-in support for external commands, if let's saw something like Docker commands, yeah, Docker, you can just run Docker PS or Docker images. It just run the commands directly. It just treats them as if if user run a command which are not built-in commands, it just directly search the binary inside user path. If it can find them, it just run the command, run the program. Yeah.
Okay, but can you do all the interesting things you can do with the other commands, like such as filtering or sorting? Does it handle that natively, or
Actually, there are two ways you can try, because some programs have some flags that can generate something like program readable output like JSON. Yeah, because when you run a command, it supports generating JSON output formats. If it supports something like this, you can just run the command and pipe it to new shells from JSON command. So and then a table view of the output is generated for you. So and you can use the data with the rest of Nushell system. And the other thing is that if it generates tabular format command output, Nushell has a command internal command called detect columns. It will try to detect output from the external commands and trying to change them to Nushell's data. A typical example is df commands in which is not built-in commands to Nushell, but you can write df pipe into columns to transfer the output of df commands into Nushell table, and then you can do what you want.
so through this method, I can also start to do the filtering and the sorting and all that, as long as I have that kind of buffering, that
Yeah,
translation. Okay.
yeah. You can do if you have a way to transfer to Nushell format to Nushell data, you can do it to you can sort by them or filter by them, do anything you want. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that was something that I thought was quite attractive, because that's one of the most useful features of New Shell is to be able to do what to do all these kinds of interesting things, because yeah, you have to learn AWK or something else to kind of do all these interesting things, that you can with New Shell, right?
Yeah,
Now,
because to be honest, I never know how to use AWK or SED. Once I learn it, I learn to use it for some time and I forget it very soon.
I usually look online and copy and paste from people, and I don't know if I've ever done anything as as elaborate as what you can do with this. Well, I mean, what else is quite exciting too is, how do I say this? You can well, sorry, not now you can, but it has a way to do like the type checking, which is quite interesting. Do you mind to talk a little bit about the type checking that it has? Because like I saw the example where it said, "Oh, hey, if you're trying to search for like say like memory usage, or you have to be able to put in like an integer or something like that, and you can't You can't just put like a string like 2 MB, you had to put in an integer of 2 MB. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when you're doing filtering with aware.
Yeah, yeah, I know that Nushell has a new interesting typing system. Yet it doesn't like Bash, which treats everything as a string. You still need to pass the string to something like to integer or something like date time. In Nushell, it gives all data type like integer, string, or file size, data time, they are all built in they they all represent in Nushell. So when you type something like 2 KB, it just pass the input data pass pass it as a file size type a type of file size directly. So in general, you don't need to care about you don't need to care you will access data with wrong assumption. If if you do something wrong, user will show an error say, hey, you are not doing the right thing because something like you can't compare you can't compare between two strings.
I mean, how does that stuff work? Because I was watching a video and the guy who was talking about Nushell, he made it seem like it was because of Rust that you can do this quite easily. Is this something because of Rust or just no relation, just that it's something that you guys wanted to have?
Actually, Nushell achieved this is using firstly, Nushell is treats everything as structured data. It also means every value in shell is just every value itself has also a type. A table is a type. A record is a type. Integer has and any other value also got its type. That all value in Nushell are expressed as value enum. Internally, they are expressed as in value enum. So uh, if you type something like three, and it Nushell pass x as a value, an int value internal. And if you type something like string itself, yeah, so it represents string value internal. So if you trying to add them like string plus string, Nushell itself will check, oh, the operator between plus one is integer and the other is a string. So it's impossible to add to add from integer to a string. So internally, the Nushell will detect it and raise evaded operation error.
Yeah, that's quite powerful how that stuff works. I mean, and it's also the error is quite clear when when I remember when I watched the video of a guy using Nushell. I haven't played around with Nushell yet. Actually, because I haven't played around with it yet, I might ask a very simple question. The Nushell, is this something you have to? Is this like a separate terminal, or is this something where I can just be in like PowerShell, or I can be in my ZSH and I can just type Nushell and it just starts working? Do I have to download a whole nother GUI app to make this work, or is it something that I could just download and just like Bash or ZSH where I could just enter into the program?
You can Nushell itself doesn't have has a GUI. You can just download a simple binary, just like a terminal program. So and then in GS you can just type Nushell to enter Nushell, and then yeah, and then you are in Nushell world.
Oh, I like that one, Nushell Worlds. So then I should be able to find this on Homebrew, right?
Homebrew, yeah, yeah, that it's installed. I believe it has uploaded its binary to Homebrew.
Yeah, now I'm just installing it right now, so I have some time to play around it. I mean, what else is quite interesting too about Nushell is it seems to have some really like developer friendly tools to it where you can work with CSVs, you can work with HTTP, you can work with SQLite. I mean, what are the other kinds of things you can do besides just your local file system? Because I was watching the video and it seemed like it had support for JSON, support for SQLite. You can work with this instead of just working with just your file system, right? Or your normal computer, right? You can like open up a database and you could be querying the database and doing things with it. Isn't that kind of built into Nushell?
Yeah, they are built into Nushell. Actually, in general, Nushell, if you let's take an example. If you are open a CSV file, Nushell itself has internal has from a command called from CSV. So internally, it just open the CSV file and pipe it to the from CSV command, and then and then the from CSV command generates the table data for you.
So are you saying that you could just say, okay, I can ls a file system, do some querying and ordering, and then I could pipe it to a CSV, pipe it to JSON, this kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's what I'm saying. You can if you want to do something like it, you can do it. Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I guess it could be useful for some things if you want to get some data. I did see that everything's kind of presented in the times, at least, were usually in. So if you do ls, it shows you, I think, when was last modified. Does it only show you in relative time, or can you actually see the actual timestamp?
You can change the date time format in config file. Yeah. There is a
Okay, it's a
section
config
to
file.
configure output of LS format. The config file is normally located. Let me try it. You can run something like vim.new.config path. So it will open the config file directly. So you can configure the output format of date time.
Okay, yeah, this is. I mean, it's quite an interesting tool for Nushell, right? Was this your first Rust project, or did you work on something else with Rust before?
Actually, Nushell is my first Rust project. Yeah. It's just something like I have read some books about Rust, and then I'm trying to find something interesting to practice my Rust language, and I'm trying to find something trying to find something interesting, and then I found news, and it's developed rapidly, and it also has a friendly community. So I dive into it. So and working, and it was my first Rust project.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. How long were you committing to Nushell until somebody asked you to join the team? Were you doing this for a
Uh,
year, for 6 months, or how long were you working with it for?
Actually, I don't fully remember, but it's about half of a year, or 8 months. It's a I think it's nearly half a year. Yeah.
What made you want to keep working on it? Was it just because you were having fun, or were you actually adding features that you needed?
The most importantly is I'm finding it very interesting, and actually it helps me to solve solve my computer related problem very a lot easier. So I want to make it better and better.
Okay, good. So has this actually helped you in learning Rust more, or not at all?
Mm, it helps me learning that a lot more, because uh, when using news when programming news, I learned something about how to write tests in Rust, and how to using something like trait object in Rust, and it it helps me touches more advanced Rust features. Yeah.
Has you started working with other Rust projects, or just sticking with Nushell?
Just sticking with Nushell, because Nushell is a relative large project, and I don't have too much time or energy on other Rust project. But if there are some side packages which Nushell is using can have improvement, I can try. I sometimes I may try to find to improve that.
Okay, that's good. So for the features of Nushell, is there anything coming up in Nushell that you think could be quite interesting? Any upcoming features?
Coming anything coming features? Let me have think. Actually, news. Firstly, news is it treats everything as structured data. The performance it's not really as performance as something like Bash or Fish Share. And currently we are trying to rewrite a new parser, a new parser to trying to improve the performance of new share internally, but it's actually it's still in slow steps forwards. And some time ago we have a huge plug-in proto. Nushell itself has built-in plug-in protocols, and sometimes ago we have awesome contributor David, right? He rewrites the plugin protocol of Nushell, who so it empowers Nushell's plugins can do many more useful things. And there are more important, more interesting things we want to improve, but they are just moving in slow steps. Something like we want to have a more robust type systems. Something like you can define your own type in new shell. Currently, it doesn't support yet. And also, we want to have a native background job support in new shell, but it also doesn't support it yet because it's relatively hard. But we are continue to trying to solve the problem. And recently we have make new shell compile in WASM, so you can open new shell in some maybe in browser. And yeah, and I think they are interesting, and there are a lot more interesting things coming up, and I can't remember them all.
So interesting that you can't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds pretty interesting stuff. It's good to see that performance is definitely on the list, and also the creating new types that could be interesting for people to have to use. Um, I mean, is there a particular area of new shell that you mostly work on yourself, or you just work on the whole on new shell all over?
Actually, working on news whole over. I think when I first touch news, I try to solve some issue, some like good first issue on news share, and then during I solve more and more issues and news share, I know more about more of the internal part of news share. So something like the module system, the internal representation of the value, or something like the plugin protocol, or the file redirection. Actually, I usually have a lot of features, and I'm trying to learn to know as much as I can. But yeah, you know it's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I bet. Okay, that's great. I mean, you definitely inspired me to take a look at New Shell, and now that I can understand that New Shell is something I can just turn on, I literally just downloaded it and using Homebrew. So I'll probably play around with it because there's definitely a couple of small things that I do once in a while that I could definitely use something simple. No need to use AWK or these other more complicated programs that we have built in that uh, I just don't have the time to to learn. I'm sure they're very powerful, but I just need to get things done. And if this seems more intuitive than the traditional way.
Yeah, also Nushell has a friendly community. If you have some simple questions, you can always whenever you want to jump in, or you have some troubles, you can always jump into the Discord servers to ask questions. We have a lot of friendly users there.
Yeah, I was just trying to see how to play around with it right now, but I couldn't quite figure it out. I'll have to have a try. But yeah, I mean, I have no more questions on my side. Is there anything that you wanted to go over? Because just give you a chance. Is something that you wanted to say, something that you want people to know about Nushell or yourself?
If there was something I want to say is like actually Nushell still have some huge something can be improved. Some like the documentation or there are some interesting area for potential user or contributors to jump in. If you are interested in Nushell, you can jump into the join the Discord servers for and do something and yeah and I hope new share users will have a have a happy time with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think definitely just give it a try. And I was just playing around with it right now. I need to get used to it because I'm not used to new shell, but I do like the colors. It makes it a lot interesting, a lot easier to see. So far it looks okay. The LS stuff is working fine, so that's good. Yeah,
I'm
maybe
happy
I'll have to.
you can I'm happy you can try it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You inspired me to give it a try for real. So it's pretty easy to install. The only thing that took me a moment to understand is I have to type NU instead of typing new shell, the whole word. So that was the one thing that I couldn't figure out, but now I got it.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
now
I
I'm
see.
on my way, and then I'll probably be playing around with it. I think I'm using I forgot what the heck it's called, the spaceship one, that app. So, but I'll have to take a look. Starship, I mean, if you know Starship.
Yeah, you Starship Nushell also starts also supports Starship. You can
Yeah,
configure it so you can just use
I'm not sure if I
inside
still
Nushell.
have Starship and even installed. I thought I did. Starship, maybe not. Oh no, I don't. Must have forgotten. Oh no, it is installed. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm using it already. Okay. All right, all right. Yeah, yeah. I'm using it already. That's how it shows some stuff on there. Okay, great. Well, Wind, it was great to meet you. Great to have you on the show, and I'm happy that I could have somebody from New Shell to talk more about it because I really didn't know much. I heard about it. I didn't know what it was about, but it's definitely something that you inspired me to install as we were talking. So now I'll probably be playing around with it throughout the week to see if it's suitable for me. So again, thank you
Thank you.
for well, thank you for coming on and talking more about New Shell. If you ever want to come back on again, just let me know.
Okay, thank you for having me.